All right. Couldn't get this live on YouTube, but we're doing recording and I'll upload it later. Welcome everybody to the Permissionless Software Foundation Technical Steering Committee. I'm Chris Troutner. Let's go around and do a quick round of introductions. Go ahead and start us off, Shoemaker.
Aaron Shoemaker. I work with BCH, the PSF, and metaverse stuff, NFTs, all that sort of thing. So I'm on the 3D 360 side.
Go ahead, Stoyan.
My name is Stoyan Zhekov, and I'm helping with maintenance on some of the JavaScript libraries for the PSF. Thank you.
Nice. Go ahead, Aaron.
Hey, Aaron Sundman. Big fan of the Permissionless Software Foundation, as well as the concept of permissionless innovation, permissionless development at all. So glad to be a part of this. I'm working on using the tools that the Permissionless Software Foundation has created to do new and different things on UTXO type blockchains like Bitcoin Cash, eCash, and Avalanche.
Nice, nice. Since we're not doing the live YouTube feed, I invited people on the channel to come join the Zoom, so hopefully we won't get too disrupted by that. So we'll just roll with it. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and bring up our agenda. And so, as always, our agenda is filed on GitHub as under the Permissionless Software Foundation GitHub group in a repository called TSC for Technical Steering Committee, and they're filed as issues. So this is the one for today, 1206. So what I really want to get to today in the roundtable is talking with you guys about next steps for governance. But let me go through some of the technical updates first. And as always, please interrupt me. Otherwise, I'll just try and get through this stuff. But I love being interrupted and answering questions and technical discussion. The big news is that the eCash DEX is fully functional, and I've let the eCash GNC know that the agreement. So here's the DEX. I've got, oh, that was weird. Got a couple NFTs for sale there, and I believe there are some fungible tokens listed, unless everybody's bought them. Yeah, there's a couple still listed, and so you can. So there's fungible tokens and NFTs, and there's the buyer and the seller, and the documentation has been updated. I ran through it with one of the ABC engineers and just confirmed that he could install everything locally and buy and sell tokens. So I think they're pretty happy with how that's going. Let's see. This is the agreement that I had with the GNC that I wrote up with the GNC a year ago. So really our only deliverables is just a REST API server and a browser-based web app for browsing the market, making orders, and taking orders. So we fulfilled all those requirements. The UI is still a little clunky, but I'm hoping we'll continue as an organization to continue to work on this and refine it. And I'm hoping that as this becomes an economic resource for other people to buy and sell tokens, that will attract additional development talent so that I'm not the only one doing things, because otherwise progress will be slow. So that's pretty exciting. That's been a big obligation for a while. It's nice to have that done, and I also received a grant from a Flip Starter, which I'll start that work in January. So I have the rest of the month of December to really work on the governance tooling for the Permissionless Software Foundation. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Looking forward to getting your guys' feedback on that.
Yeah, fantastic. What does the eCash group think of the pay-to-write database? I mean, I know that you had to rewrite it or at least move it over to the eCash or create one for eCash.
Yeah.
Are they kind of excited about that concept? What did they say about that?
There's some interest. I've been talking mostly, I'm in a group of eCash builders, and there's a guy, Will, who also built a swap marketplace. He actually just launched the app. I was just playing with it. So it's very similar, but it uses it sticks closer to the original swap protocol by putting all the data on chain. So he was the one that was mostly asking me about the pay-to-write database, and he he seemed to like the answers that I was giving him. And Will's a good guy. I'm looking forward to working with him because I want to figure out how we can make, our implementation work with his implementation so that we can just have more liquidity in general.
Right. Right. That's cool. It's cool to see that.
Yeah, yeah. So the other thing of note is this DEX AMM. So AMM stands for Automated Market Maker, and it maintains offers in the DEX. And so let me show you what that looks like. So it's fully operational in the BCH DEX right now. So it sells these 3 Trout tokens and these 2 PSF token lots. So a lot of 10 and a lot of 1. So what it's doing is it's just basically a bot that's sitting there, and every 10 minutes it looks to see what the Bitcoin Cash price is, and then if it's deviated by more than 5, if these prices have deviated by more than 5%, it'll destroy the offer and recreate it. And if anybody comes along and buys any of these orders, it'll recreate the order. And then it's also this is a good segue into our governance token. It also maintains a governance token for sale at a price of 1,000 PSF tokens. So this US dollar price is calculated from the price of Bitcoin Cash and the corresponding price of the PSF token if you were to go to psfoundation.cash. So kind of an interesting thing. I'm hoping people will take this, and there are a handful of companies that still have SLP tokens, and they've been waiting for me to finish the DEX so that they can list their tokens for sale. So I think this will help them. I'm really hoping to see people list USDT, the Tether stablecoin. It's still around. It's still functional. I just talked to Bitcoin VN, which is a non-KYC exchange based, I believe, in Vietnam. And they just enabled UST, both buying and selling. So if people need liquidity to buy and to sell UST on the DEX, they can get it from this other exchange. And so yeah, I'm really hoping to see some UST listed there and see if we can revive the stable coins on Bitcoin Cash. That would be pretty nice. On the eCash side, they have the Bucks token, which is like a sort of a stable coin. And people are already buying and selling those on the DEX on the eCash side.
Excellent.
So that's the DEX update. Other tech updates of note. So a couple meetings ago, I was talking about that, oh, there's this bug, but I've never seen it in Minimal SLP wallet, and I've never seen it before. And I don't think it's affected anybody. And then here we go, like a couple days ago, the token liquidity app, it was such an extreme corner case where it's like the SLP indexer has to go down and be down for a while, and then it has to come up and not be and be trying to re-index from the beginning, and then at that like precise moment you have to make an SLP transaction. And so that's what the token liquidity app tried to do, and it ended up burning 113,000 PSF tokens. So it was like I just hadn't updated the dependencies. If I had done that, this couldn't have happened because the bug was already fixed. So I've done that. I've updated the dependencies. I reminted the same amount of PSF tokens and sent them to the token liquidity app. So we're back up and operational. But this just goes to show why. And so the token liquidity app's been down for like a week, and because it just runs and it like, I don't check on it for a while.
Right.
But this is why the DEX is going to be a superior way to buy PSF tokens, because there's no way you can get into a state where you either don't have your money or the tokens that you want. And so the token liquidity app will be there, but now that the DEX is working and the automated market maker is working, that's how I'm going to be encouraging people to buy PSF tokens if they need them for, the operating the DEX locally or interacting with the pay to write database.
So one of the things that I do as a part of OwnRare is going to be buying some more PSF, just because it becomes a reward for purchasing and selling. So rather than having my own OwnRare token, I'd rather have something that supports the entire ecosystem. So you recommend going forward, instead of using the token liquidity app, go ahead and use the DEX.
Yeah, go to the BCH DEX here at dexdemo.fullstack.cash, navigate to the fungible tokens area. And right now I've got them in 1 and 10 token denominations, but I can, increase that. And
Okay.
eventually, this is jumping ahead to the governance stuff, but I don't want to be the one operating the stuff. I would like for us to create a bounty for someone to operate this stuff, and preferably anonymously if we can manage to do that securely. And I'll get to a few more details about that. But yeah, this is the best way, because if something happens, if there's like a network hiccup and the order doesn't go through, you don't see your tokens. This is in the documentation, but you can always go to the sweep section and then click this sweep DEX trading wallet, and that will cancel any open counter offers and bring the money back into your wallet. So there's no way you can get into a state where you can lose your money and not get the tokens. And so that's why this is the preferred and better option.
Yeah, I'll be probably building up a red line so that I'll do it manually. I was considering how to automatically go pull, buy PSF when necessary, but I think right now I'll just have a red line set and I'll just manually go purchase from there.
Yeah, well, I could help you with the API calls. You can do that whole purchase process like just by making API calls, and
okay.
and so you could actually have that all automated on your back end.
Okay, yeah, maybe I'll talk to you about that. Thanks.
Yeah, just going through the decks. Well, so I'll skip around here before we get to the governance one. There's a skip down to the bottom here. There's a wallet optimize command. And I think, did I bring that up here? Yeah, so this has been in minimal SLP wallet, and I know Aaron Sunman, you're probably the most excited about it being in the command line wallet. And so what it does is it optimizes your wallet by consolidating the UTXOs. So if there's multiple Bitcoin Cash UTXOs, it'll generate a transaction to bring them all and consolidate them into a single UTXO. So you haven't lost any money, you've just reduced the number of UTXOs. And every UTXO, it represents essentially one or more API calls. And so the effect that it has is it makes it makes it appear as though everything's running faster because it is. And so a better user experience. And it also respects tokens. So if you say have multiple UTXOs that represent the same token class, it'll generate a transaction to bring all your tokens into one UTXO for that token class. So it's really useful for that. Anytime, especially if you have an automated program like the token liquidity app or the DEX or any of these apps that are sort of automated, they tend to accumulate UTXOs and they get slower and slower and slower. I actually just saw this happen with the pay to write database. It's been getting slower and slower and slower over the last like 2-3 months, and couldn't really figure out why. And it turned out this was the problem. So I just actually submitted a patch for that. So now every 24 hours, the pay to write database consolidates its own wallet, and that's sped it up significantly.
Right. I would imagine that there are times when it's not just speeding it up, but it becomes something that goes from not possible to possible because of this. Because as soon as you get so many UTXOs, like we saw with Flex USD or something, that it just like conks everything out, that this is actually a big move forward, I think, for that.
Yeah, it leads to a lot of secondary issues where, when you make an API call, typically it has somewhere between 15 and 30 seconds to complete. Otherwise, it'll be shut down. And I've seen that a lot of times. There's also rate limiting. The more API calls you're going to make, like the more likely you are to hit a rate limit error. So there's this issue of having a lot of UTXO is like throws out, there's a lot of secondary issues that it can create.
Now it doesn't address NFTs, right? Because they can't be combined, right? They are individually. So it's fungible tokens and BCH that will be addressed in that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
NFTs are always a single UTXO.
Right.
Yeah. But on the same phenomenon, this is also why I encourage people not to put too many tokens, including NFTs, in one wallet, because every UTXO, so it's like, I encourage people like kind of 10 is the limit. Like if you have more than 10 NFTs or 10 different types of token, in your wallet, you should really think about splitting those up into multiple wallets. I have a 3-ring binder with a bunch of paper wallets in it, and so that's where I store my tokens. So I don't have them in my actively running. That's essentially my cold storage for my tokens.
Gotcha. So yeah, I was thinking about that too, and I started building a system that started creating new wallets so that I could place them, as someone creates. Like, I'm not sure how Suite does it, because they've moved more to Tezos and ERC 721, for any of their newer ones. Before, they would do a lot of SLP, but I'm afraid what they were doing, and they're creating 5,000. How do you keep 5,000 in one wallet?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you split it up to 10 per wallet, well, you're still talking 500 wallets you had to create to deal with your 5,000. So I don't know. I look at that, and I'm trying to make it easy to make additions on OwnRare. And if you make 5 additions, no problem. But if someone types in 5,000, well, I'm going to be like chunking through and creating wallets, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, so a strategy I would recommend for that, because I think that's going to become more and more of a common problem, is have a sort of a working wallet and then like a cold wallet. So anytime you get more, like, and you can automate the rules around this, like anytime you have more than, say, 10 tokens in your working wallet, you push them off into the cold wallet,
Right.
and then as you need them, you bring them back. And yeah, we probably just need to create a library around that sort of strategy or workflow.
I think after all the work I've done, I feel like that's the right method. Like right now, I'm looking at just doing an individual personal wallet that doesn't hold any of the NFTs, just holds PSF and BCH, and all the NFTs get moved off into like controlled wallets.
Yeah.
But I'll just assign ownership elsewhere in an account in the database, which sucks. But like, trying to do everything on chain is really, really tough.
Yeah, and it gets slow. Yeah, it gets slow, and it's just the nature of the tech. Yeah. Okay, let me get back to. So another item of note is there's a new video for creating tokens with the PSF BCH wallet, command line wallet, and also the eCash equivalent wallet. So it's in the README of either of those, but it just walks you through step by step. It's basically, if anybody here's used that NFT creator app, it achieves the exact same thing, but just with the command line wallet. And because it's the command line wallet, like, you can take the steps in that video and tweak them just slightly if you want to make, a group token or an NFT or a fungible token or a simple NFT. What I show in the video is how to make a simple NFT. But it's just go for it.
Before the NFTs was mostly this like fungible tokens, like with amount of 1.
Mm-hmm.
But now for the government, you mentioned it's a group token. So which of our wallets support like creating these group tokens with children inside? Is it just the PSF command one, or the?
Well, the web wallet supports both. So like wallet.fullstack.cash, that supports both NFT 1 and what I call the simple NFT, which is a fungible token of quantity 1. So it'll show up both. It supports
will
both.
show it, but for the minting, like
for the minting.
PSF BCH wallet does, because I use that. So because basically all the NFTs I'm doing are group, but I haven't really adopted the simple NFTs too much yet. I still have to work on that. But yeah, all of the stuff that I've seen, it uses it and works for minting.
Yeah, just the command line wallet. If you want to mint NFTs and group tokens, just the command line wallet. I haven't produced a web app that will work with group tokens, other than, I mean, the DEX and the web wallet will receive them and you can send them just fine. But in terms of minting tools, it's just the command line wallet. Well, yeah, so that brings us to the VIP channel. So yeah, I have created this group token. And so it's using our specifications for PS2 for the mutable data and PS7 for the schema. So with this group token, well, actually, let me just show you guys. It's actually not built into this token explorer. It probably will be eventually, but if you go to fullstack.cash/explore BCHN, this is it's kind of like a Swagger doc where it lets you interact with the BCH API REST API calls. And so if you go down to the PSF SLP indexer calls, and then take so this page is linked in the agenda if you guys want to get here and get this token ID. When you call the stats endpoint on a token for a group NFT, it will return all the child NFTs that group token generated. So these are all the governance, PSF governance NFTs that exist as of this date. So if I mint new ones, they'll show up here. And so and then I can do a reverse lookup where if I query the transaction history of one of these NFTs, I can get the last transaction. And then from that transaction, I can find the address of the person holding the NFT. And so that's what allows the governance token to act as a homing beacon for voting tokens. So I can airdrop voting tokens. I don't need to know who they are. They don't even need to check in with us. I can just sort of remotely find all the addresses holding these NFTs and use it as a homing beacon to airdrop a voting token to them. And then you guys have all gone through this, but for the sake of the recording, we have a VIP channel. And I've modified our bot to, if you do help or start, it'll show you the instructions, and there's some videos on how to purchase the governance NFT, and then how to verify yourself with the bot. The other thing that this governance NFT gives you is the ability to speak in this VIP room. And so, yeah, you guys have all gone through this where you register, you sign a message proving that you own an address that possesses one of these NFTs. And then the bot verifies that and verifies that you are actually in possession of a governance NFT. And then once you've proven that, it allows you to talk in the channel. So that'll allow us, I'm really excited by this because this is going to allow us to, do governance. We haven't really done a serious governance thing in a year. We were doing the merit calculation and we were using that to airdrop tokens, and that worked, but it was really complex and a lot of work on my part. And so I think that the way we're doing it now will be much more automatable and be much easier for us to just like the idea. And this is also, I should cover this in case you guys haven't seen it, but at psfoundation.info is the governance document. And this is a repository. So if you guys want to change anything or suggest a change, you can submit a pull request, because this is all markdown in a GitHub repository. But the idea here is that I'm not sure exactly where I talk about it, but the VIP Telegram channel is essentially like the top of the pyramid. Like, we're trying to go for a horizontal organization, but we have to have something on top. And so that's the governance NFT and the VIP room. And so we can talk about governance there without having to worry about noisy people who don't have skin in the game disrupting the conversation. And we can have a conversation, and if through those conversations we're like, hey, we should do X, and we all kind of feel like we have like a rough consensus, like, yeah, that's a good idea, we should do it. Then we can put it to a vote. So now we have the mechanism in place to airdrop voting tokens, just like we did in the past, where you'd get a voting token and you'd send it to one of three addresses, like yes, no, or abstain. And if you don't send it, that counts as an abstain. And because the governance token is for sale, anyone can just buy the governance token and show that they have skin in the game and participate in governance. And like I said, I'll probably buy I gave each of you one to bootstrap the governance, and the first one's free, but you got to pay for the next one, kind of like a dealer. But yeah, I'm probably going to buy several, and one token is one vote. And the reason we didn't do this in the past, or at least I was hesitant to use a governance token in this way, is because I was worried about people telling other people what to do, and I didn't want us to devolve into that, because this is not a company. I think watching the Yearn is a DAO on Ethereum, and watching their videos and how they dealt with this, really, like, that whole notion of telling people what to do just doesn't exist in a DAO. It can't. Like, they're not built that way.
Right.
We're not really paying anybody at the end of the day, so we don't get the right to tell anybody what to do. And so I'm not really worried about that anymore as being a serious issue. So at this point, like, I'm just glad to, I really want to step back personally. Like, I don't want to have these keys. I don't want to have this power. I want us to all be able to work together and achieve decisions, through consensus, and see where this organization goes from there. I mean, we're all aligned sort of idealistically in terms of just wanting freedom, and we have a mission. The PSF has a mission. I think we're all aligned on that. So anyways, that's my thoughts on the governance. So I guess with that, let me let me open up the roundtable, and these are some of the things I wanted to discuss with you guys today. So we talked a little bit in the VIP channel about multi-sig wallets, and there's two main applications that I see could use a multi-sig wallet for our governance. One is that, like I said, I'd like to have an official PSF DEX operator that's selling PSF tokens and governance tokens. And I'd also like us to continue to have an official token liquidity app and an operator, and I'd like to not be that operator, or I think it would be safer if I wasn't. So what I envision is, like, we'd create a bounty for someone to operate them, and hopefully we can do this in a way that the person can be anonymous but still trustworthy. Not sure how we're going to achieve that. But one of the features we could build into these apps is remote control, where we could have a multi-sig wallet that anybody who has a governance token could get a key to this multi-sig wallet. And then what this wallet could do is issue transactions with an op return that has remote control instructions, like shut down, like drain the wallet and then shut yourself down, like in case of an emergency. So even though we're not operating the software, the VIP group could remotely drain the wallet and shut it down. So just a limited set of instructions for extreme situations. I think we could build that fairly easily. And then another way that I see this multi-sig working is what we've talked about and is captured in those governance documents about a minting council that would actually hold the minting baton for the PSF token, both on Bitcoin Cash and on eCash and any other future blockchains we choose to create a token on. So those are two ways that I could see the multi-sig. And then I also just wanted to open it up to talk about the minting council and how do we go about deciding who should be on the minting council? That's the big question in my mind. So yeah, I'll open it up. Do you guys have any thoughts on any of that?
Dice.
Yeah, that'd be one way.
Would it be like 3 of 5? What would be the multi-sig? I mean, what is like your vision for what would that number be from a multi-sig perspective?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the easiest way to do it is just like a 51% threshold. So
Gotcha.
however many keys there are, it takes, half plus 1.
Gotcha, right. Yeah, that makes sense. Because you can't plan on how many are going to exist at this moment when we don't know who all is part of it.
Yeah, and the other thing, so I actually have this written down in the documents. For the minting council, it would be a requirement to meet every quarter. And the purpose for that would be to update the price of the PSF, the cost to write to the pay to write database. That's another thing that's set by a private key because it's part of the mutable data for that token. So whenever paid write database comes up, one of the first things it does on startup is it looks at an address on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain to see what is the price I should be charging for a write. And the idea is for that price to be set by the minting council. That would be done through a multi-sig wallet. And so the idea with the minting council is it would be a requirement to meet every 3 months. Like that's part of what you're agreeing to be on the minting council. And if you don't show up, then you sort of get booted out for that quarter. Because every time we would meet, we have this opportunity to switch keys, bring new keys in, take old keys out, as long as we can meet a 50% plus one threshold. Does that make sense to you guys? What I just said?
Yeah.
Yeah, but how will be this like in the time? The first the multi-sig wallet will be created, and after this console will start operating, or first it will start like without the real multi-sig wallet, or I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it just probably the easiest way would be for me to just create like a 2 of 3 multi-sig where I have all the keys, and then I can like and then we can do a series of transactions that move those keys out and bring new keys in. I think that's how we could do it.
Then where will be this code base go? Like my idea was like we talk in Telegram. So the multi-sig wallet itself is a great feature. So I was thinking maybe if you add this functionality, for example, to all of the PSF command line wallets, because we already have like eCash, BCH, and AVAX one.
Mm-hmm.
So if we see, it's not very good idea to have different multi-sig code base than this one. It will be maybe good to have this in the current one, but for example, now there's this configuration feature where we put like REST URL or something. So when you add, for example, like multi-sig equal yes, it will enable this functionality. So the usual guys, they will maybe not need multi-sig. So when they install this wallet, they will just use it like until now. But when you put, for example, in the configuration multi-sig equal yes, it will allow the additional commands to be used. So it will be just one code base for everybody, but with the config, we can make the wallet more complicated or more for common use.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That.
That's a good idea, Stoyan. Because that's why I was proposing putting it in a branch, just because it's already getting pretty intimidating when you run that help command, like the number of commands you got to wade through. So yeah, config would be another way to do that. Probably a better way to do that.
Have you ever run the help command on FFmpeg though?
Yeah, it's all relative, right?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you know, you got to use the page down function for that.
This is the different like talk. Maybe the help command can be improved by section or something, but I mean, usual people, some of them also will want multi-sig, not only this console, but for them,
I like the idea.
Yeah,
I like
so
that
they
idea.
just will add this config to be yes,
So,
they can use it.
Yeah, I like that idea. And so you don't have to have 2 separate things. You download one wallet and you tell it. Well, that makes it really easy too, because if people get used to using the PSF BCH wallet, well, they're not switching. They're literally just going, all right, I want to use this for whatever use case, maybe we're doing a fundraiser or something like that. So I just download a new wallet for the fundraiser, make it multi-sig, distribute the keys, and then we have a wallet address for people to send funds. And then, yada. That's just one use case off the top of my head.
Yeah. I'm just writing this down so that I don't forget it.
And, I've seen other programs do with when you're talking about the help function, I've seen other programs have different ways of calling the help command, and so that you can get more detailed or less detailed on the help functions. So you could do something like that so that you have a very simplified help command. And then if you want something more detailed, there's another help command that's more detailed.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, and that's what it's like getting due, I mean, we've just been adding commands for the last year, and so it's getting kind of
Mhm.
long. So now we need to think about, design and usability.
It can be maybe the same, doing the same if the all commands can be divided on sections that can be enabled with this config. For example, there can be IPFS section because some people will not need it. So like 3 or 4 like these sections, and by default some of them will be yes, most of them except this multisig. But when you put like IPFS equal no, it will not show
Hide
any more
those
the
IPFS
commands.
commands. Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, there's lots of little things we could. I mean, I'm already using the config to do things like set server settings. So
Yeah,
I just hadn't
that's why I
occurred to
was-
me to use it to sort of clean up the menu. So that's a good idea. Yeah, it's a really good idea. Well, so let's continue to think about how we want, because I like the simplicity of the VIP room and the governance NFT of just like, maybe we don't touch multi-sig wallets. That's something we push off to the Meeting Council. That way we only have one multi-sig wallet to worry about. The governance, the VIP room and the governance NFT is really just about voting and making official decisions. And then we essentially, the kind of the purpose of the Meeting Council, they're not supposed to do anything on their own. Like they only do stuff when the VIP group votes that they should do things. That's sort of what I have in my mind. And then so the Minting Council, like that's their job, is to meet every 3 months, rotate keys, set the price of so that's another thing. So my at least initial data point for the pay to write database is 1 cent per write, and we can discuss what whether that is a good number or not. But as the price of Bitcoin Cash fluctuates over time, that's another reason why the Minting Council would be a good idea for them to meet every 3 months. It's just to update that price and bring it back to whatever relative to whatever the price of Bitcoin Cash is and what 1 penny happens to come out to. And it's an opportunity to rotate keys, add people, boot people. But I'm not sure. The open question in my mind is, how do we select people for the Minting Council? I mean, I think clearly you need to have some technical competence, because it's probably going to be all command line wallet stuff. Like, I don't think we'll get to a point, at least not anytime soon, where we'll have a graphical user interface. That would just make everything more difficult to do that.
Why not have a few parameters like create a token from the command line?
Like, demonstrate. In order to join the Minting Council, you have to demonstrate the ability to do that. Yeah.
Like, create a token from the command line, or create an NFT from the command line, that sort of thing.
The other reason for separating like the technical expertise from the general VIP is like, I've talked to very non-technical people who are interested. They have money. They are interested in being a part of the PSF. They want to participate in governance, but we need to make that a process as simple as possible. So like that I could envision, airdrop. If you follow the video for the VIP bot, you'll already have like a dedicated wallet that holding your governance NFT, and that should be the only thing it's used for. And then that is the wallet that will receive the voting tokens. And from there, it's just a simple matter of sending those voting tokens to another address. So I think that's simple enough. We could train non-technical people. Like, I could have a video that shows how to cast a voting token using all graphical user interface stuff. But then those decisions, that's sort of separating the concerns there. Now the Minting Council can take over once they're directed to do something. And that would be slightly more technical people who are more comfortable with the command line. And thinking through issues that might arise with a multi-sig wallet, of which there are many.
So how would we prove that they minted a token from the command line as opposed to using web-based GUI?
Well, I guess what I'm proposing really is like not even trying to build a web-based GUI for Minting Council stuff.
Well, minting council stuff, we don't need a web-based GUI, but we do need a way um, to vet that the people that are going to be on the minting council can use a command line.
Mhm.
So like doing something with the BCH wallet from the command line would make sense. But then my question is, well, how do we verify that they use the wallet from the command line?
Oh, right. Well, I mean, I think it's more like if a person was really enthusiastic and wanted to be on the minting council and got over their ski tips and got all that way, they would either like know how to participate in a multi-sig type deal or they wouldn't. And so if they wouldn't, then we'd eventually just have to boot them, because we couldn't differentiate between someone who just doesn't show up and someone who just doesn't have the ability to figure out.
I got an idea. So we have them create a multi-sig wallet and send keys to like you or Stoyan or somebody, because that would prove, okay, you are able to use the command line, you created a multi-sig wallet and you sent keys out. There you go.
Yeah, we
That'd
could
be the
have them
only way to do it.
sign, well, yeah, so we could have them sign a message. And then the other thing about the minting council that I want to do more of is we have this ability in the command line wallet to send essentially end-to-end encrypted email. And so we could have them sign a message, put that information, the signature and the address, into one of these emails and email it. And that could be like the initiation process, because that shows that they can install it and they can use it and they can do this email system, which is critical for minting council communication. And then that could be like like you've demonstrated enough technical proficiency at that point that we're pretty sure you can figure out how to sign a signature for one of these multi-signature transactions. Yeah, so that would work. I mean, the other thing is, so what we really want to evolve or avoid is ending up in a situation where 50% plus one of the minting council collude to mint tokens willy-nilly and send them wherever. Like, they can't hide that. It's all going to be on chain. Like, so we'll be able to detect a scenario like that, and it's also not the end of the world, because we can just fork the coin, or fork all the software to use a new coin and start a new account. It's just like, we should be aware that it's a failure mode and try to avoid it.
Is there a way to put a timing mechanism on minting? So like, because you're talking about doing this quarterly, right? So
yeah,
to create a way that there's only a certain time frame, like a few days that are open for minting to even happen.
It is technically possible to apply a time lock to the baton so that it cannot be spent for a certain period, like for a certain number of blocks.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to do that, but that might be worth looking into. I mean, that's certainly an option that we could explore.
Because that would mean that, like, yes, you could still have them inflate during that time, but the rest of the time you've mitigated that risk. They can't inflate it until that window is open,
Yeah, we could set it like 2 months. Okay, for the next 2 months, like, no one can spend this baton no matter what.
Yeah.
And then after 2 months time, or 2 months worth of blocks, then the minting council can come together and mint the things now. Yeah, that's I mean, that would require a bit of research, but it is certainly doable. But I guess what I'm really trying to get at is how, I mean, I guess to start with, just to bootstrap this thing, we can just, anybody who has a governance NFT can be welcome to join. I also would love to do this in a way that's like anonymous friendly, so that people don't have to, connect their government ID to what they're doing with the PSF. And it's going to take time to get there. So I think to start with, I mean, we have enough technical know-how to at least create like a 2 of 3 wallet, just to get the ball rolling. But then eventually we got to figure out like how we're gonna even let people join the minting council. Is it just like, if you got the money to have it, like if you just have a governance NFT and you want to join, you're good to go? Or do we want to, and you can demonstrate technical proficiency, is that enough? Like, do we need some sort of active commitment? Like buying a governance NFT is kind of an active commitment, because you're putting it at least $100, and I think that price is going to go up from here. It should anyways, to sort of buy in.
Mhm.
Or you've done enough bounties that you've accumulated 1,000 PSF tokens and you can swap them out for a governance. That would be the preferred path, for getting on the governance council. But yeah, so do we want to impose any sort of additional constraints to the mini? And we don't need to answer this question right now. This is more just like, I want you guys to think about this, and this will be an ongoing conversation.
What about the manipulating the metadata? Like when you own the governance token, what if you can put something in this JSON file that you are a candidate for this meeting council? So it's your own metadata, right? So if there's some like easy way to add like meeting council candidate yes in this metadata, after this we can get a subset of the governance token that want to participate, and choose somebody from them, and for example distribute them another NFT token we was talking about that will be member of the council, which will be valid for 1 year.
Well, I'm not sure if I'm totally following, but let me throw this out. So one thing we could do is, instead of giving the so yeah, I assume that like with the Meeting Council, we'd have an NFT because of that homing beacon type of thing. So you can change your address, but we know that we know who you are because we can track you with this NFT sort of. But instead of giving them an NFT, we could give them a group token, and that way they can mint their own NFT with their own and have control over the mutable data. And then they can update the mutable data with things like, here's how you contact me. So I don't think that follows exactly what you're proposing, but just like that mechanically might be a way to, you were mentioning about mutable data. So that would be a way to give the token holder control of their own mutable data.
Yes, so yeah, something like this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well.
There, another idea is that the multi-sig wallet is created and you have to send your governance token to the multi-sig wallet. So you're vesting the governance token to the multi-sig wallet, which would remove some of your voting power, but also balance out the ability to mint. So because you don't necessarily want somebody with a lot of voting power to also be the person that's minting, because then it could go crazy. So
yeah, and if a person bought multiple governance tokens, we wouldn't want them to have multiple seats on the minting council. We'd want them just to have one.
So I mean, there's the idea of like having some way of vesting or locking up that those governance tokens to get to be on the minting council, in a sense.
That's an interesting idea.
And if you got a multi-sig wallet in the first place and the token is sent to it, well, they can't get that token back unless the minting council itself decides to send it back.
Yeah. Okay, so we're saying these are the filters for a person to be on the minting council. You have to have a governance NFT first, and you have to display the technical proficiency to send an email, an encrypted email. And then part of being on the minting council is you essentially lock up your governance token. And that token cannot be used for governance decisions anymore until you opt out of the minting council. And yeah, and then so I'm thinking of a person, like, let's say a person acquired 5 governance tokens, so they NFTs, and so they essentially lock one up so they can be on the minting council. They have the other 4 to engage in voting, but let's say they send them to 4 separate accounts, so now they have 1 for voting and they have 4 seats on the minting council, but they can't actually use those to vote. But then, say if a person had 10 governance NFTs, I mean, now you're really talking about skin in the game, and now they've got 5 seats on the minting council and 5 voting.
Well, how are you minting the governance NFTs? Are you just minting them in a batch and then sending them? Because
No,
if you were,
I'm minting them one at a time.
you're minting one at a time. Okay,
Yeah.
so if somebody wants to buy a certain amount, you then have a record of like, all right, they bought, at first you have a record of like, okay, they got 5 NFTs, you know,
Yeah.
and you can kind of source that. But you could also use the mutable data as markers, you know, and
Yeah, well, yeah, so right now, the way that the governance NFTs are being built, they all have the same mutable data. So if I change the data for one, I change it for all of them.
okay.
But like what we could do, like for the minting council, is we'd probably have each member have a minting council NFT. And what we'd probably do is give them the group token and have them mint their own NFT so that they can have control of the mutable data for that NFT and add stuff like contact information.
Well, what if they burn the governance token NFT and are then airdropped a minting token NFT, because they would essentially be vesting it, and then when they're done with the minting token NFT, they can burn it or send it back and then get airdropped a new governance token NFT to replace it.
We can emulate something like this liquid staking, which is now very popular, which means you buy a government token, you send it to some address, and you will be automatically receiving liquid some other token, and the people who are in the minting console will also receive minting token. So anytime you can get back your token if you send this liquid one, and you get one new real token, like after 1 year or something.
Just in terms of locking it, like, yeah, we could.
Yeah,
you could essentially lock up your governance token to get a minting group token.
Yeah, minting token, but you also get this replacement for your real token, which you can use just for voting maybe. So when you check the notes, the votes, you will check these two groups, the real one and this, or they call them usually with S, staked PSF. So it will be staked government token. So you will check the votes based on real government token and staked one that people have.
Yeah. Well, mechanically we can do that. It's just is that really solving a problem? Yeah, these are good ideas.
It's a tough nut to crack.
It is a tough nut to
You
crack.
know,
and we might not need to get, I mean, we always have the nuclear option. That's the thing. If we completely fuck up, like we always have the nuclear option, which is we just change all the code to use a new token, airdrop a new token, isolate the bad actor. You know, they don't get the airdrop for the new token.
well, what about having the governance council vote on who's on the minting council?
Yeah, so I thought about that, but then if we're trying to be like anonymous friendly, I mean, you can still have reputation even if you're anonymous, but right now we don't really have good tools for that.
Well, yeah, we do need authenticity through anonymity as well, but I'm thinking, okay, who might want to be on the minting council? If you could look at voting track record in a way, like as the years go on, you voted for this project didn't go through. Like, I don't know if we want you, you know, like if your track record is like you brought these projects went through, they're very successful. You could still remain anonymous while people seeing that you brought this stuff, it's successful, it went well, and then have people vote on whether or not to have that person on the minting council.
Yeah, exactly. So if it was built out over time, so that's a good. Yeah, let me sort of explain the very high level vision I have for the PSF, which is we've got the PaidWright database that's starting to be implemented into end user applications like the DEX. And also like this email system, I want to expand that so that you can register a name in the pay to write database, and then you can send these encrypted emails to a name rather than a Bitcoin Cash address. Little things like that. There's lots of little ways. Like Aaron Sunman, we've talked about this briefly. Like you're going to want to run your own local pay to write database once you integrate our token standards, because that's going to give you like immediate access to the token icons.
Right.
And
yeah, I want it to be fast enough. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and at Launchpad, we're using the pay to write database for the same reason. We've built essentially an NFT maker, and so we need to run our own local pinning service because we're pinning all this content on IPFS, and we're using that pinning cluster. So I'm expecting like the usage of the pay to write database to go up. You have to burn PSF tokens when you use it. So that's a cash flow engine. So now we're generating cash flow. And so what I really want to see the governance, the VIP room, do is like, we have our mission, which is to make it easy for individuals to protect their privacy, circumvent censorship, and engage in economic activity. That's our mission. But we're achieving our mission through some of the software, and the very pragmatic thing to keep in mind is like the cash flow is everything. If we don't have cash flow, we just can't afford to do anything. And so the pay to write database is, I think, our best engine, long-term engine for generating cash flow. And so everything's kind of, we got our mission and we got our cash flow, and those are like the two just very, that's what anchors us. That's our foundation on which we build. And so I'm hoping to see the VIP room like steer this organization in a direction that is, profitable and in line with our mission. And so I could see down the road, if we start actually generating significant amounts of cash flow, that's like someone would want to control that. And there's the other reason, like, why wouldn't someone just fork the pay to write database and build their own version? A big part of that is network effects. I think like, a lot of the value is not necessarily going to be, it's going to be in the fact that like we are an organization maintaining this code, and we've created a closed loop, economic loop to pay for the continued improvement of software around this thing. I think that's our secret sauce. That's why we don't need intellectual property. That's why we don't have to worry about people just forking the code. But if someone manages to essentially, who has a shit ton of money, they just start buying governance tokens and getting their own seats on the minting council, they get to the point where they can propose, someone's going to have to oppose them economically, or else it will get to this point where they essentially take control of the organization. And then of course at that point we can fork, like that's the nuclear option, is if someone was really tyrannical and started doing that, everyone else is free to leave.
There's an interesting thing about this too, is that I don't know if you saw Ryan X Charles is yesterday, he posted something. He's leaving Bitcoin. He started as a Bcasher. He was an excellent developer. He was developer for Reddit, and then he left, and he posted yesterday that he decided he's no longer going to do anything. And a lot of it is to the fact that he felt like this was the place to go. This was going to be everything. And then it turned out to be nothing, because nothing got successful. And I'd hate to have developers like you, Chris, like you, Stoyan, to see the same thing happen and get so disgusted that you just go, you know what, fuck this whole thing, I'm done. Right. And that's kind of what he did, except the last bit where he said Craig Wright is Satoshi.
But I have a history with Ryan, and he is fucking crazy. And I can bring up a dozen developers who've been in this space for a long time who will totally back me up on that statement.
Well, that's funny. I love the guy and I love his mind, but I totally see what you're saying, because some of the videos he's done, I'm like, dude, where are you going with this?
Oh,
but
yeah.
I am concerned about like developers just saying, you know what, I'm done with this. And I know we got a whole bunch of other things, but I'm also
Jeff Garzik did. I mean, Bitcoin is riddled with people who rage quit this, and I gotta hand it to Max Kaiser for coining this phrase of like, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. And I've gotten burned out and I've left the space. I didn't feel that it was appropriate to like leave a rage quit letter. But yeah, people leave and they get disillusioned, and then they come back, and you don't change Bitcoin. Bitcoin changes you. And I mean, I agree. I certainly want to build something that's successful. I don't want to get to the point where I burn out and rage quit again. And nor do I want to see anybody else do that. So yeah, that's very important. The thing that I think really throws a lot of these people off, every person who's ever rage quit Bitcoin, is that they're thinking that Bitcoin's money and it behaves like money. And those statements are not true. Like anything can be money. So to that extent, Bitcoin is money, but Bitcoin is code, and it has properties of code, like it can be forked, and money can't do that. That's one thing that very definitely makes it not money. It makes it something new that we've never really experienced before socially. And so I love that it forked. Like, I love every Bitcoin fork. I don't necessarily like BSV, but I like all the forks of Bitcoin that have ever existed other than that one. They all do something a little unique. They represent an idea or a culture. And I think they all have the right to exist, just like every code fork that's ever existed has a right to exist. And if there's enough people around willing to keep the blockchain running, you can't kill it. And so I really embrace this notion of forking. I think it's right. I think it's beautiful. And it freaks most people out if they are willing to think about it at all. And so I really feel like that's our strength. That's our strength, is by embracing this fork notion, this nuclear option, that like, hey, if someone tries to do a hostile takeover of this organization and start telling people what to do, it's not going to work, because we're just gonna create a fork, and anybody at any point in time is welcome to create a fork. And so I really think like that's where I come down to. Like the reason why people like Ryan Charles, like, I love Jeff Garzik and I have nothing but respect for him. I just remember him rage quitting, and I have significantly less respect for Ryan for rage quitting. But the point is like, these guys, they all, and I hope I'm remembering Jeff. It was Jeff. It might have been somebody else, but anyways.
Mike Hearn.
Yeah, that's probably who I'm thinking of. Mike Hearn was sort of the legendary rage quitter. Yeah,
He was the
everything.
OG rage quitter, right?
Yeah. Sorry, Jeff, I didn't mean to pick on you. Yeah, Mike Hearn. That's who I was thinking of. But the point is, like, these guys have, what's the word I'm looking for? Very rigid notions of what Bitcoin is supposed to be, and then when it's not that thing, they become incredibly frustrated, because that's what frustration is. It's your expectations minus reality, and that difference is the level of frustration you feel. And so these people rage quit because they're extremely frustrated because Bitcoin's not doing the thing that they expect it to do. And the thing is like, Bitcoin changes you. You don't change Bitcoin. Like, Bitcoin's not going to meet your expectations. You have to meet Bitcoin's expectations. And so this forking feature is a part of the nature of Bitcoin. And so, yeah, I guess I'm just repeating myself now, but I think that's why we don't have to worry about people telling other people what to do. And that's why I'm just bringing this conversation back around to, how do we choose people for the minting council? I'm wondering, like, let's say someone desired that cash flow and they had a shit ton of money, and they come in and they buy 50 governance tokens. And hopefully it hurts a lot economically because the price is so high at that point. And they managed to load the minting council very discreetly with Sybil accounts, and they start sort of running the show. I think that unless the cash flow is there to support that, it can't possibly succeed, because the more people they piss off, the more people leave. Someone's going to be like, fuck this, I'm going to fork all the code and start, PSF 2. And then enough people are like, yeah, I don't like this guy either, I'm going to go work for that other organization. I mean, that's essentially how we see I mean, feel free to push back on me, guys. I'm throwing ideas out here. Like, don't just nod your heads if you disagree with any of this.
Well, I had to step away to deal with my daughters, but I will say that the nuclear option, I think, is enough that if somebody's got a lot of money, they're not going to invest like that, because that is, if they're malicious, they're going to lose their money. And
yeah,
I think it is enough of a deterrent that you don't really have to worry about that. especially when you're talking open source software. You know, this is something I get in, and I know you've gotten into this all the time too, is like the older generation keeps going, well, where's your IP? What can we patent? And it's like, it's open source code. It doesn't work that way, you know,
Mhm.
and it's about network effects, and they don't totally get that. And you're right. If you've got a
Yeah,
strong
network
network,
effects is everything.
yeah, you got a strong network, it doesn't matter what your protocol is or how much money is behind it. If you don't have the network, you lose out.
Yeah.
You know, that cold start problem book, I don't know if you got to where Airbnb had competition from that European company.
Yeah, yeah, it's not coming to me right away, but yeah, there were some good examples there.
So, yeah, this company starts up in Europe. They got tons of financial backing. They're in Europe and they're threatening Airbnb's Europe business. But because Airbnb had the stronger network, they were able to win out in the end, even though they had more capital, more resources, and more employees and everything.
Yeah.
So it was an
Yeah.
example of how network effects really matter.
Yeah, there was a similar story about Uber, and maybe it was Sidecar, but it was a similar thing where ultimately network effects won the day.
Yeah. So once you get to that, it's becomes super, super strong and resilient, but it's about getting there and getting that hard side, which with the PSF, I think, you know, we kind of have the hard side. You know, we're kind of talking right now, you know.
Yeah, getting devs to participate. That's the hard
Yeah.
side.
So, and then as like having the decks out there, that's some of the soft side, as it becomes easier and easier to create and trade tokens and create and trade NFTs. That becomes a lot easier. But when you're talking about somebody coming in and purchasing a bunch of governance tokens and trying to take over a revenue flow, hard to do if the whole people can just jump ship to another ship. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, good. It's good to hear my words echoed back, because it tells me like, okay, we're on the same page here. And you know, hopefully other people will watch this recording, and if you know, push back if there's a good you know, argument. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what makes me think like, okay, well, maybe we don't need to like nail this perfectly right out of the gate. You know, there's room for evolution, and if we completely screw it up, you know, there's the nuclear option.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of like, try to plan it out, start running, and then, you know, you're going to figure things out when along the way. And if we try to figure everything out from the get-go, we're never going to start, you know.
Yeah.
We're never going to take off. So at
We need
some point you
like,
just got to run.
we need like this MVP, like minimal value
Viable
product.
product. Yeah.
Yeah, valuable product, just to something to start with, because everything else can be done with governance already. If you
Mhm.
can do proposals and changes, it's
Right.
part of the process to make it perfect.
Yeah, that's a
So-
big, I mean, this is why I like this little window I have between wrapping up the GNC and starting this other project that I got the grant for. Like, I have this month to work on governance tooling. So that's why I really want to get the governance NFT out, get the VIP bot working, and start working on the multi-sig wallet and the ability to airdrop tokens and do votes.
Well, I feel like standing up on stage like Steve Ballmer did and saying, developers, 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 we need developers. We need, just like your discussion at St. Kitts was, you need to get hobbyist developers that want to build and use our tools,
Yeah.
or the governance won't matter at all. We have to keep building stuff that people want to use, because it's the developers that are going to build cool shit. It's not going to be like, right now it's a few of us doing it. And so like, it's really,
Yeah.
we've got to be able to bring in more people. And like the fact that you are building this amazing platform, I think will bring people in. It's
Yeah.
just, it's figure out how to reach them too.
Well, and you know, I'm glad you said that, Aaron, because you know, most of the time I'm just like, well, I'll just build it, you know, because I have the ability, and like, whatever, like, I don't need to have a discussion about this. But there's only one of me, and I've been laboring for years, and
Yeah.
I've accomplished what I've accomplished, but that's why I was like, okay, like I don't want to put a big emphasis on this governance stuff, but it's the only way we scale. So that's why I was like, we've got to have the ability to at least just do basic voting, just so we can, that's how we, bring more people in here. And there's also, like I said, like we don't have funding. We have like this chronic underfund, like we could do a lot more if we had more money in our little organization. And so there are people who do want to participate in the governance, and they're willing to buy in, but they're not very technical. And so if we want their money, we're going to have to cater to them. And
Well,
yeah.
And there's another guy I know from the XR community that I've been trying to get him to look at the decks, and maybe I just need to reach out to him because he's working on time job markets for developers. So tokenized time. I think it's a perfect married use case with the decks where
Sure. Yeah,
developers
anything that
could
involves
come on,
tokens.
tokenize their time, and then other people could come buy them to develop stuff with PSF technology, So I think that's a great use case, and also would provide that, keep that engine going that you're talking about.
Here's one link about a similar project. They're on Solana, but they have an interesting floor, like to incentivize the open source developer. Like they making like every bug or issue on GitHub to be like a separate, like they call it quests. So you can participate, and if you resolve this, you get token, or you can just like fund it or something. So it's interesting read when you have time.
Yeah, good, Storian. This will be a good resource to check. This reminds me of like Gitcoin and yeah, there's a lot of, and also I'm working a lot with Radical right now, and they have a program called Drips. And the idea is that like as you use software created by open source developers, there's like a monetary feedback mechanism where you can drip like tiny fractions of stream tiny fractions of money, and then because of the way the Radical system is, it can sort of divvy up that money based on usage. And so, yeah, a lot of ideas like this coming out. It'd be interesting to watch and learn.
Another idea, that could be used is there are people that come to the PSF that are looking for projects to be developed. Well, why not direct them to the NFT generator page and have them fill out what their project is, what they're looking for as a piece of the mutable data that can be posted to the DEX, and then that could be another way for developers to go and look for projects they want to develop.
Yeah. There's a bootstrapping, issue with that. Like I like the idea. I've kind of been writing about this a bit on my blog, troutsblog.com, of how I have learned to approach, because as I work with people who have projects, entrepreneurs, they're coming from so many different angles. And so I've been trying to like find a workflow that I can apply to every single person, regardless of sort of where they're coming from and what their idea is. And so a big part of that is I start with a use case document, which is high level, non-technical. It just explains like, what is the idea? What's the problem it solves? How does it make money? What's the happy path? Like, how does a user go from, start to finish in an ideal scenario? And then you take that and you create a specification document, and that's low level technical that eventually like is used to spin out tasks for developers, or bounties, or quests, and to use the nomenclature of this other thing. And so I'm finding that to be a critical thing, but if we had a bigger network of developers, then it would be more practical for we could have a salesman who just goes and gets leads and then hands the lead off to a project manager who goes through that use case document specification exercise with them, that gets it to the point where they can generate bounties. And then if we had a nice network of developers, they could be fulfilling the bounties. And yeah, so I think we can get there. I mean, we have to grow our network.
There is a cold start problem there again, right? And how do you solve this? NFT posting of a job, and then you have a place where developers can go, we're hands off.
Mhm.
Let them sort it out, let them work on it. And then as the network grows, then you come in and say, hey, here's a good way. You developers, you want to be more successful. Here's the way that I do things. We do the high level, we do the specifications, we spin off bounties and stuff like that. But at first, just let them come in, use the decks, buy, sell time, buy, sell projects, boom, posted, and let them handle it themselves. All the decks is there is to be to facilitate, and it's not non-custodial, and it's it's peer to peer, so hands off. It's just, here's a tool where you got a project, you got an idea, you can post it. And in fact, Zen, who has in a project he's working on to utilize AI to help people come up with their business plan, their pitch, and everything like that. And Ruben, who he's working with, is trying to create that time job market. Well, I think the DEX would be a great place to say, all right, you've gone over to Zen's place, you've created a business plan, everything like that, and then you go to the DEX, post it up, and then we start just going out and saying, hey, developers, you're looking for work, go over here. There's people
Yeah.
that posted stuff that they want. And then it's just hands off and let the market grow. And then once it starts growing, then you bring in that stuff,
Yeah. I mean, I hope it will, organization will naturally emerge like that. That would be.
Yeah. And the thing is, it'll probably emerge better than we can do it.
Mhm.
Right. If we set out and we're like, we're going to create this way that we do things, and here's how you're going to do it. Here's how you're going to, well, some developers may not work that way. And, if they don't, it's fine. It's totally fine. They may have a better way of working, and we may not know about it. And they may come in and they may take a job like that. Somebody comes to the PSF and they're like, I need X, Y, and Z. This developer comes to the DEX. I'll take that job. They do a fabulous job. That's great. And then we're off to the races, and more developers are coming, more people are coming. And if the DEX is like, we already have the NFT generator, it's a very similar concept. And then, Zen is standing up his thing, which is utilizing open AI to help create business plans and stuff for people. It's a hop, skip, and a jump to go, I've got an idea. Okay, you got an idea? Let's create the business plan and stuff. All right, you got everything together. Let's post it to the DEX. And now developers can come in and say, yeah, I'll take that one, and start developing.
Yeah, I think what we need to do is build a model, find something that works so that we can then be like, okay, like this is the model, follow this recipe to achieve what you need to achieve. And so that's we haven't quite figured the model out, but yeah, we're developing these tools.
Well, I think and I'm going to reach out to some people I know, because they're working on projects I really feel would go hand in hand. Ruben, who's really working on the time marketplace. Well, again, if you're an entrepreneur, you could literally go through the steps, create your business plan, create your NFT, but then you could also look at the market, the DEX, and be like, oh, so-and-so has 100 hours for sale of tokenize. I'm going to buy them, and then you go and buy them, and then you start coordinating with one another and developing.
Yeah, I should start doing that. Just sell an hour of my time.
Yeah.
As a token.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody who buys this token, you can exchange it in for an hour of my time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People would probably take you up on it.
Yeah.
And like Ruben, he's not part of the PSF right now. I'd love to get him on board. He's a good entrepreneur. His idea is to figure out ways to leverage that, utilize that. How often do you put those tokens out there? Can you buy back those tokens, like you're buying back your time, like vacation, stuff like that? So he's got some good protocols there, and I haven't been able to he's developing on Polygon, and I've been like whispering to him, you need to go over to BCH. It's way easier and way cheaper, and if you were using the DEX, it'd be super fast and really cheap. But you put these pieces together and you let them run, and then like like I said, you kind of assemble the airplane as we're taking off.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys, let's wrap this up in the next 7 minutes. Is there anything that any of you want to talk about, or put an idea out there, or talk about something you're building, or?
Yeah, Stoyan had something he was going to show us. I always love the Stoyan show.
Yeah, I wanted, but it will become maybe too long discussion. Maybe we can leave it for the next one, maybe.
Okay.
I was going to propose that we do like a name service with these NFTs. If you remember, I've done this on some hackathon, but it was more like a prototype. But now we, because the main problem was implementing this in wallets, and we didn't control any of the wallets, so it was not meaningful. But now we have good wallets, and the name service, even in the moment, these ENC domains, they are the most profitable NFT. They have everybody, not artists or some, everybody want name. So it will generate a lot of traffic for NFTs. And yeah, it's pretty, I think it's pretty simple project. Like
I would love to see that, Stoyan.
Yeah, just this group token, which will represent some high level domain like .psf, and the children inside will be just like person's tokens.
Yeah,
and
I
now
like
we have the metadata, so they can add some other stuff like emails and stuff like this on.
Yeah, so I kind of vaguely remember how your DNS system worked with the tokens. So would you would essentially sell a group token, and then you'd have that person mint them, and so they would be tied to the group token that you possess, which would be the root for the naming system.
Yeah,
but
like
then they could add their own mutable data, and it's through that minting process that you define the name, how the name resolves, right?
Yeah. So this was the idea, but that time it was just like command line, like just for fun. But now it's with this component, it's everything. It will be just on the UI side, just one button resolve. So you put some name like Chris.psf, and in your settings, you just need to put that PSF extension, search this group token. So you put the token address there, and it will resolve the names to addresses.
Yeah.
So
well, I'd love to integrate that with, because I want to resurrect message.fullstack.cache at some point. We had the graphical user interface for doing these end-to-end encrypted emails, but you can only send them to a Bitcoin Cash address. So I'd love to tie what you're talking about in with that. I mean, just as the first application, I think would be the lowest hanging fruit, just so that now we can send email to names instead of Bitcoin Cash addresses. And the pay to write database isn't the best use case there because the data falls off after a year. So, but I think NFTs would be much more, better use case because it's part of the blockchain.
Yeah, this was my idea because it's help with adoption. If the people consent to addresses, they will be more up to names, will be more active. And as I mentioned, it will like increase the DEX maybe usage because everybody wants these names.
Yeah, dude, Stoyan, I will help you with this, but you should run with this. I mean, this is a great idea, and you can totally sell the tokens on the DEX, and I will work with you to integrate it into the email system. Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. And it's another use case where I think adoption of this technology, especially what the PSF has created, is about functionality and use case, and it just happens to use blockchain to do that. But there's protocols out there that go out and they shout, we're blockchain, we're blockchain, we're blockchain, come invest in us because we're blockchain. And this is very much like, here are permissionless protocols that happen to use blockchain and IPFS on the back end.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. I imagine the day that somebody goes and uses the DEX and they may not even know it's blockchain, or when we're talking about the wallet plugins, and like Story and I have been talking about like the NFT generator. Well, the goal is for somebody to go to a page like that and not even realize it's a blockchain NFT, you know?
Yeah,
And
or not even have to care. Like,
yeah,
oh, okay,
not even have to
whatever.
care. And like, in the end, I think we're gonna see user adoption because it has functionality and it works for the use case, and it just happens to use this stuff in the background, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Stoyan, so let's take that conversation to the PSF channel. I want to keep talking about it. One thing that and this is what we can talk about offline, is if you're going to need an indexer for something like this, because I've been wanting to fork the PSF SLP indexer for the simple store protocol. And I think that would operate very similar to your naming system, where the easiest way to just track all the tokens and names is to have a dedicated indexer for it. And it's such a special purpose application that the database would be very small for something like that.
Right.
But let's just keep talking about it. Those are just, I'm just throwing stuff at the wall right now.
I think those are fantastic mechanisms to move forward with new functionality that doesn't really exist in the world. You know, so encrypted messaging that doesn't rely on a centralized system, and then a simple store protocol, which is a killer application for so many things.
Yeah, cool. Well, it's an inspiring conversation, guys. I think this is a good place to wrap it up.
All right.
Thank you for making the time and participating. I'm gonna put this recording on YouTube as soon as we're done here. And yeah, we covered some good stuff. Really appreciate your guys' feedback on the governance. I'm excited to take the next few steps in terms of governance for this organization to see it grow, you know, beyond me and beyond us.
Sounds good. All right. Talk to you later.
Cheers, guys.
Aaron, by the way, I cannot access my server anymore. Did you close this IPFS Omaha port?
No, it's not closed, but I had to restart it. So I'll check it out. And
Yeah, I'll work with you too, because I need to log in there and poke around.
yeah, the port should be open on the firewall. I will check out and make sure it's running. The SSH application might not have rebooted when I rebooted the servers. So I will go in there and make sure it is. So